Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Purposive Communication, Calm 100. It's evening while I'm recording this. I'm doing this in a cafe, in a coffee shop, so you might hear some background noise and perhaps some cars passing by. Definitely some cars passing by. And I hope you can still hear through all the background noise and not be distracted. And it's really been challenging, no? Kamusta na? Nabamoy kuryente sa inyo? Kaya kami wala pa. It hasn't been easy, kind of jumping from one place to another, trying to look for electricity and trying to connect to good Wi-Fi. But it's just amazing because I'm still here and we're gonna keep going. So let's start. So Calm 100, Purposive Communication, and we already began with Chapter 1, Communication Processes, Principles, and Ethics. So this was just a series of asynchronous activities. And if you remember, you took notes, right? I gave you an entire chapter to read and work on. And I hope that you have your notes, keep your notes with you because you will be needing that for our future lessons. Okay, so let's begin. Welcome, everyone. And do you feel like this? Do you feel like you're needing a cup of coffee and you're kind of yawning? It's nighttime where I am, so I'm tempted to have a cup of coffee, but I shouldn't because it's not very good for you, when you drink coffee at night. But some people, I know some people who drink coffee at night and who are fine. Okay? So let's play a game before we begin or as we begin this session tonight or today. Let's play a game. It's called Guess the Filipino Sign Language. The other time in my other class, I was using sign language and my students were asking, or a student messaged me and said, Ma'am, kabalulig kag sign language and interested daw siya nga mag-learn. So if you're also interested to learn sign language, let me know. I know a friend who can help you and you can also help that friend of mine by learning sign language. Let's start with round 1. Okay? I'm going to be doing I'm going to be signing for you and you're going to have to guess what what am I trying to say? Okay, I'm trying to speak with my hands, and you have to guess what I'm trying to say. Okay, I'll try to magnify myself a little bit. Okay, right. So, round one. Let's go round one. Round one is pretty easy, pretty basic. So it's either this one or this one. Okay, so that's round one. So if you were in my other classes in the past, you're gonna know what the sign language is. It's very easy. Okay, or something like that, and something like that. Do you know the answer? Do you have an answer? Okay, that's hi or hello. So hi or hello. Great, let's proceed. I hope you pick this up and if you see someone from the deaf community, then you can sign. You can say hi. Okay? You can say hello. If you eat in Garden Cafe, which is one of our favorite restaurants here in the city, you can greet those who are serving you, those who are of the deaf community. Okay, let's go to round two. Nako, round two tayo. Ito, this is one of my favorites. Let's see if I can do this right. I hope I can do this right. I'll try to show you. Okay, so it's something like that. Okay, okay. So what is this? Tama ba to? I hope I'm doing the right thing. If I make a mistake, you can correct me. But if you know what this means, comment. Let me know. Okay, so this is ano to? Right? This is please. Okay? You say please. So if you order, for example, if you order water sa Garden Cafe, you can spell water with your hand or you can point to the menu and then say please. I think they would really like that, the ones who are serving you, if you say please. Okay? That's a magic word. Okay, let's go to round three. This is another very basic expression that I hope you can use. Okay, whenever you're out and maybe if you meet a deaf person, or if someone is serving you in Garden Cafe, or if you just want to use this with your friends who aren't necessarily from the deaf community. Okay, Okay, I think you know what this is. Okay, this is thank you. Right. Thank you. Make sure to answer so that you can just participate and get some points for this. Right, let's go to round 4. Okay, round 4 tayo. Ano ba yung round 4? Ito, I like this a lot. Okay, round 4 is, let's see if I can do this right. Okay, I'll do that again, okay? Now, there's a simpler way of doing this. It's like that, and you point to the person, okay? Okay. What type of sign language is that? Okay, this is very basic. How are you? Okay, so how are you? You can use your lips as well. Okay, how are you? You try asking a deaf person that and see how they'll answer. Okay, next round 5. This is another. Oh, I already gave you the answer. Sorry. Okay, you don't need to answer that. Sorry. So just form like an S with your fist and just with a sincere expression. Sorry. Sorry. Okay. Let's go to round 6. Round 6, you can use dapat Valentine's. Like, kaso we've passed Valentine's already. So, okay, what is that? Okay, boys, you can use this if you're maybe courting someone. Okay, this means beautiful, right? So, beautiful. You're beautiful. Okay, you can tell someone that if you meet someone deaf mute. Guapa ka, guapa. Next, okay, this one. I think you're gonna like this. Okay, daghan tani. It's like you have a goatee and you're kind of scratching at your goatee. What is this? Sige nga, ano kaya to? Okay, cute. Okay, that means cute. So if you do this, you can say I'm cute or you're cute. Okay? Okay, this is our last round, okay? For our last round, eto na. Ano kaya to? Okay? What is this? And the cars in my background are going crazy. What is this? You should know this. Ayan. Oh, yung mga motorcycles are also saying this along with me. This means, ayan, I love you. So this is how you sign I love you. And it's just a really sweet symbol. Sa iba, rock and roll to eh. But this is I love you. I love you. Mahal kita. Great. So, padayon ta. I hope you picked up something new from those expressions, and I hope you can apply those in the near future with your friends or with each other. So, let's proceed. We're going to do a quick review on communication, the importance of communication and the process of communication. So, you know this by now already. Communication is very powerful. Alam nyo na to, 'di ba? That's why we're learning this. And this is why as future social workers, communication is a tool that you're going to need to succeed in your field. Kung walang communication, we won't be able to have consensus in society. We're not going to be able to agree on anything. We're not going to be able to explain our side. Without communication, you won't be able to hear your client's perspective. You won't be able to listen and to share. You won't be able to convince someone, to persuade someone. You won't be able to educate somebody or change someone's mind if you don't communicate. Communication it's a life skill. It's a very basic unit of living, and it's very powerful. Now, Jim Ron said, and if you can read this with me, I'd appreciate that. If you can communicate, you can get by. But if you communicate skillfully, you can work miracles. So can you say that with me? The underlined term, communicate skillfully. One more time, communicate skillfully. So Jim Rohn said, if you can communicate skillfully, you can work miracles. But how do you communicate skillfully? And what does it mean to communicate? Paano? Ano? Okay? We're asking some very basic questions. Now, I love this definition of communication. I hope you take note of this. Communication is the human act of sending, verbal or nonverbal, online or offline, and receiving messages where interpretations are normally constructed in the process. Let's say that again. Communication is the human act of sending and receiving messages where interpretations are normally constructed in the process. Now, you can argue and say, well, animals also communicate. Okay, yes, they do. They have a very special way of communicating. But for this particular course or for this subject, we're going to be focusing on human communication. Sige, let's go to the etymology or origin of the word communication. So if you've joined my Com 50, my communication and society class, you would know that the origin of the word communication basically means to share or to make common, to have something in common, to share, and eventually, to unite in understanding. And it has Latin roots, it also has Old French roots, but ultimately, it's communis, I think, if you can say communis. And ultimately, you want to remember this: communication is essentially to share or to make common. That is the end goal also of communication, for understanding to unite one mind and another mind, or a couple of minds, and for them to come to maybe agreement, not necessarily to agree on everything. Sometimes you can agree to disagree. But the point is, as you share, you're making things common. You have common things already because your understanding of things are kind of, linking or interlinking. And purposive communication specifically is also called intentional communication. And basically, it's communicating with intent or purpose. Kaya siya purposive communication. And sabi ni Maga, no, and other authors, intentional communication that happens within the bounds of specific contexts. Okay? Remember that big word, it's the C word, context. So when you say purposive communication, you're talking about intentional communication that happens within the bounds of specific contexts. Later on, we will talk about what context means, or contexts are, okay? And communication applied within a specific setting, environment, scene, social relations, and culture. And we're going to go to the next slide and you'll see what I mean. So when you say context, it's basically the setting or environment, where communication takes place. That's the setting or environment, no? Meaning it can be a family, the workplace, it can be the church. So that's your setting or your environment. Now, context can also be in the sense, we're gonna let that motorcycle pass by, of social relations. So when you say social relations, what's the relationship of one communicator to the other? In this context that we have right here, I'm your teacher and you are my students, right? It can also be within the context of a husband and wife relationship, or a parent and child, a boss and a subordinate. Okay? Now, the third type of context is what we call scenes. And scenes are larger than a setting or environment. They're usually inclusive of place, time, and occasion. So, for example, it's a business meeting, right? So, the scene in a business meeting, perhaps right now in the new normal, probably it's a Zoom conference call, and you are talking with your boss, no? And the occasion is, well, it's a meeting. So each context of a scene has its own norms, its own rules that you have to follow, 'di ba? Hindi ka naman pwedeng mag-informal talk with your boss. If it's a party or a wedding, there's a different atmosphere, there's a different scene, okay? And our final category for context is culture. Now, culture, it's super duper wide, super duper broad. It's an umbrella term that kind of, well, it encapsulates, no, it includes history, tradition, beliefs, norms, and values. So, for example, you are within the context of larger Philippine culture, but the smaller culture is perhaps the Bolanon culture, or there can even be smaller subcultures, like if you're within a group of social workers, meron kayong sariling culture, may history, may tradition, may beliefs, may norms, may values as social work students. Kayo lang makaka-relate perhaps, or maybe psych students can relate. Ano yung Adler's theory, no? Um, ano yung what do you mean by social constructs, no? What are the laws that are related to social work? Ano yung vowsy? Ano yung mga jargon nyo? Iba-iba. And because you have that specific culture of being in the social work field as a context, then you can kind of understand each other because you have a lot of things in common, or you have a specific like amount of things in common that's enough to call you a culture. Okay? So yun yung iba-ibang context. And the context will affect the process of sending and receiving messages. Okay? So, again, sinabi ko na sa inyo, when when your environment is different, pag nasa family kayo, you might speak very informally. When you're in school, you might be a lot more formal. You call people ma'am or miss, right? When you're in church, probably the way you communicate yourself is different. The way you dress is different. Okay? Mag-iiba siya. Not only the process of sending and receiving, but your meanings are changing. So yung meaning ng for example, ano ba? Let's think of an example. When you plant a seed in, let's say, in agriculture, different yung meaning niya versus when you plant a seed in religious terms, 'di ba? Uh, Planting a seed in educational terms, right? If you're a teacher and you're planting a seed in your students' hearts, you're cultivating the soil in their hearts. So iba yung meaning niya in an educational sense kasi when you're teaching somebody, hindi mo lang sila gustong turuan na parang papasok sa isang tenga, lalabas sa kabila. Gusto mo, makapasok ka sa puso nila, and you plant that seed and you water it until it grows and it remains in that person's heart. It becomes a tree and takes root and changes that person's life. Right? That's what it means to plant a seed in an educational sense. But in an agricultural sense, to plant a seed is literally to take, to take a seed, to put it in soil that you've already prepared and cultivated, and then to cover it up, wait for it to grow, water it, tend to it, take out the weeds, and eventually it will turn into a tree and bear fruit. And fruit is literal fruit. So iba-iba siya depending on the context that you are in. Sige, let's proceed. For communication to be purposive or intentional, it must be done in a way that is suitable to the specific context. When you are not sensitive to your context, you cease to become purposive, you cease to become effective, you cease to become intentional. When you go to school and um, you talk in very informal terms, you don't use respectful words, you use a tone that's very, for example, no, a tone na parang ano ba, how do I, offensive, right? You for example, you boss your classmates around, like, huy, kanang, pakupya ako, assignment pa eh. Oh, di ba, ang tono ni mo, it's already academic environment anymore. Oh, nag-chika sa silingan, di ba? Or imagine talking to your teacher the way you talk to your friends, di ba? Like, mom, kanang, or Queenie, oh, Queenie na yung tawag. So, if you don't, if you're not sensitive to the context, you're gonna cease to be intentional. You're probably gonna offend me. You're gonna offend the person that you're trying to communicate with, and communication breaks down. There's a breakdown that takes place. Kasi close na yung ears nung gusto nyong kausapin kasi hindi kayo sensitive sa context. Hindi nyo iniisip kung anong mafe-feel nung receiver nung communication. 'Di ba? So, kailangan sensitive tayo even in communication, especially in communication. Now, you know this if you were in my Com 50 class. Communication is a process whereby, if you can read this with me, please do. People create and transmit meaning through the exchange of verbal and non-verbal messages in a particular context. That's non-verbal, that's a typo. So, again, it's a process. It involves people. It involves creating and transmitting meaning, and it involves exchange. So there's an exchange going on of both verbal, spoken, written, no, and non-verbal messages. Here, the way you conduct yourself, the way you dress. We're gonna talk about that later, and it happens in a particular context. So communication is continuous. Ayan, look at us communicating. Ang cute ng GIF, no? And I say GIF. I don't know how you say it. So, nagawa ko na to in my other class. If communication is a process, does communication with a person or a group of people ever end? Can we really stop communicating with people? Okay, so parang sa breakup or sa friendship, when it ends, does communication end? And I'll give you the quick answer, no? The quick answer is basically, wag
Gosh.
na tayong manood ng paubaya, okay? Sige, the quick answer is basically, no. We never stop communicating because even silence is a form of communication. When you give somebody the silent treatment, you're communicating something. Maybe they don't get completely what you mean. Baka yung silence mo, you just need more time or you just need rest. Pero baka to the other person, grabe na yung pag-overthink nila. Hala, ayaw na nito sa akin. O wala na kami. Hindi na, wala na. It's the end. Okay? So, in communication, even silence says something. Is that amazing? Isn't that amazing? And here's a relationship tip that I also think I gave you last year if you were in my Com 50 class. Silence and space. So, sa panahon ngayon, uso ang ghosting, no? Have you ever ghosted somebody? If you've ghosted somebody or if you've been ghosted by somebody, I think you're gonna be able to feel how painful it is when somebody just leaves you hanging. And if I can give you a few tips, no, instead of ghosting somebody, S, stand back, give the person space. So space is S. Just stand back for a bit, take some time off. You can tell the person, wait lang, I need some time. Kailangan ko ng oras. Need some space. Then pause and pray. Think about it. Why are you suffocated? Why are you feeling this way towards this relationship? Is it toxic? What makes it toxic? So assess and then clarify. Clarify mo, maybe this is not what I want right now. Or I'm not in a place where I can give this person what I need, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship. And then E is explain. Bumalik ka, tapos bigyan mo ng closure. If you need more time, say, I need more time. If you don't want to keep going anymore, say, I think this is not working out, and I think it's time for us to kind of let each other go or to go our separate ways. What's important is you also give the person time to talk, to share how they feel. And I think if we practice this, maybe our broken hearts would heal faster, maybe, just maybe. Or we'd be friends with people that we've kind of separated ways with. Okay, so review on the basic principles of communication. Um, these are the different models of communication. There are more models, but we're just gonna review, I think, two or three. So first we have the transmission model. It's a linear one-way process. It's when a sender intentionally transmits a message to a receiver, and you already know the elements, no, in this model. You have the sender, you have the receiver, you have a message, a channel, and the noise. So the noise is any interference or obstruction to the sending and receiving of the message. Diba? Anything that stands in the way, anything that becomes an obstacle between the sender and the receiver is noise. Yung hindi magandang cell reception, when you're calling your boyfriend or your girlfriend over the phone and makagubag relasyon, kay hina yung signal. So that's a form of noise. It's a disruption. Okay? So next we have the interaction model. The interaction model is more of a two-way process, and the sender and the receiver kind of take turns. So I send you a message, you receive it. You send me a message, I receive it. Okay? And merong feedback din na nangyayari. Okay? So interaction model, both sender and receiver. Okay? And there's an important element that we call feedback. And feedback is essentially a message that is sent in response to other messages. A feedback can either be negative or positive. Now, why is feedback important? Can you answer that please in the comment section or jot it down somewhere? Why is feedback important? Bakit nga ba importante ang feedback? Now, I'm excited to know what you think. And finally, we have the transactional model. The transactional model is basically it views communicators as generating social realities within contexts. So you and the person that you are communicating with, you're creating meaning together. You're coming to an understanding, and it's simultaneous. It's happening. It's a circular process, meaning I didn't really start it and you didn't really start it, but somehow we started to communicate, and it's an ongoing process. Okay, that's the transactional model. Yeah, so just remember that simultaneous and circular, no delay in feedback. So again, kita niyo yan sa 51st dates, no? Meron na kayong mutual understanding, and the communication continues. Okay, let's go to the 5 C's in communication. There are actually 7 C's, but we'll just talk of five. Um, Effective or intentional communication is courteous. It's clear, it's concise, it's concrete, and it's complete. Okay? So, quickly now, courteous is my message friendly, open, honest? Are there insults na hidden or passive-aggressive pala yung tone ko? No, kanang kintahay, unsay tawag ani, moyon ka nga, wala lagi ko nasuko, pero imuhang body language kay lahi na gyud, nagtatampo ka na pala, pero hindi, 'di ba? You're trying to say that you're not angry, but actually your body language, your tone is already passive-aggressive, and you're kind of already emotionally blackmailing the other person, no? Tapos is, are you keeping your reader's viewpoint in mind? Are you thinking of the other person? Are you being sensitive? Makaka-offend ba to sa tao or hindi? Okay? And then, are you exercising empathy? Last semester, I showed you a video on empathy by Brene Brown. And empathy is basically different from sympathy. 'Di ba? Remember nyo? Dahil sympathy kind of is detached, na parang nakakaawa ka naman, ang hirap, pero at least 'di ba? O 'di ba? Oo 'no, ang hirap ng sitwasyon mo, wala kang pang-tuition, pero at least 'di ba may kinakain ka pa. So you're trying to kind of minimize the situation of the person. You're kind of invalidating it, and you're saying at least 'di ba? But when you're exercising empathy on the other hand, that was sympathy, okay? Pag empathy, you're sitting down with a person and you're looking at them and you're saying, I'm here. I understand. I'm not going to leave. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to be with you. Even as you struggle, I know what it's like. Or maybe I don't know what it's like, but I'll stay here with you. I'm here. Okay? So that's the difference. Now, second, is my message clear? So clear ba yung purpose mo? Why am I communicating with this person? How am I communicating with this person? That's delivery. So that involves tone, the usage of your words, your grammar, your pronunciation, and even your sentence construction. So, one example of this is, okay, balik tayo. Uh, Sometimes we strike up a conversation, no? For example, sa messenger. Tapos, have you experienced that? Naray mo kalitog hi sa messenger. And parang, okay, if someone says hi, what do you say? Hello, di ba? But sometimes, you wish na when the person messages you, na anay purpose, nga nung ni-message siya nimo. Kay, busy biyata. And you want to be able to know, okay, unsa may tumong ani yung person. Kaya sa Messenger, wala na biya na undang, magsugod na mong chat, you feel parang, you feel like you have to reply. Kasi you're online. But actually, not really. You know, you have to set boundaries. And if you're gonna message someone on Messenger, it's best to tell them why you're messaging them. Like, hi, I just want to check on you. How are you? Or maybe, hi, mangutanong ta kung unsay assignment nato ganina, or unsa to akong na-miss ganina sa atong subject. So, make your purpose very clear from the onset, from the beginning. Now, the delivery is imotunada sa Messenger, dili kay na maklaro, no, but you can use emojis, you can use proper punctuation, 'di ba? Di pud na kapital tanan, 'di ba? Ginagmayon sa nimo tarungon nimog spell para ang imo teacher malipay pud, uy kabalo akong student mag type in proper English, right? Or if you're in a formal environment, your tone is very important. That you're respectful. Dili nga pabundak or nga murag pinugos. Okay? So one example is Ilonggo or Hiligaynon versus Cebuano or Bolanon. When you say karon in Cebuano or in Bolanon, when you say karon, it means now, di ba? But in Hiligaynon, karon means later. So, when I was in Iloilo, we would have this joke, no? Kanusa ta manglakaw, or when are you gonna go? And if a Hiligaynon tells you karon lang, okay, you have to be careful. Kaya base nakailis na ka and all, and you're very excited. And then, dugaya man ni manglakaw. But apparently, karon in Hiligaynon means later. Okay? So, you have to be sensitive. Number three, is my message concise? Concise means it's brief, it's short, it's simple, and it packs the message well. Less is more. Okay? When you're trying to communicate purposively, intentionally, less is more. With a multitude of words daw, mas madali tayong magkamali when we have a lot of words. So, eliminate what's unnecessary. Don't try to flower up. Just be sincere and keep it simple and short. Okay? Example, no, something that many people, even ako before, I would say, therefore, I conclude. But actually, when you're saying therefore, you're already concluding. So there's no need to say I conclude. Therefore, I conclude. You can say therefore, the researchers found, okay, or you can say I conclude that the results of the study, okay, ganon. Diretso na. Wag lang therefore, tapos I conclude pa. Okay, there are other ways to say I conclude, diba? You can say, to sum up, in summary, overall, it may be said, on the whole, all things considered, in sum, by and large, all in all. So take note of that when you go into English, when you go into your research. Magagamit nyo yan. Okay, number four, is my message concrete? Anong ibig sabihin nun? Vivid ba yung details mo? Or napaka-general na parang okay, walang kakulay-kulay. It's not interesting at all. Dead. Okay? Plain. So imagine your friend comes to you and your friend says, "Uy, kabulo ka." For example, you're asking your friend, you're very excited, and you're like, "How was your day? Kamusta ka today?" And your friend is like, "Okay lang." Nagunsa mo dito sa ICM, nagsuroy-suroy. Ah, dito sa unsay inyong gikaon didto? Basta naniud to rami. Oh, 'di ba? So when you communicate with someone like that, it makawala gana. But when you make an effort to be as clear, as vivid as possible, as concrete as possible, then you actually get to, what do you call this? You encourage the person that you're communicating with to also engage, to also think of the world differently. No? For example, I remember a story na parang think of ways that you can answer the question, how are you, creatively. So, di ba, usually, pag tinatanong tayo, how are you? We usually say, I'm fine, thank you. How about you? or we say I'm okay, or we say okay ra. So mura gyapon, go pagyapon. So the challenge is how can you answer the question how are you creatively. So I know a friend, ano ba, parang if I remember correctly, it's like tinanong siya, how are you? And sabi niya, oh, I feel like a rose in the middle of the ocean. O, di ba? So parang mapapaisip ka, anong ibig sabihin nun? Anong ibig sabihin ng rose in the middle of the ocean? But that's another way of, you imagine it and you're like, okay, what's it like to be a rose floating in the middle of a large ocean? And then siguro, ewan ko, nalulunod na siya sa mga problema niya. Maybe this person feels alone. Hindi ko alam. So you can clarify, anong ibig sabihin nun? Rose in the middle of the ocean, no, diba? So it gives you reasons to continue communicating with that person. Uh, Other examples, siguro, stories of older people like my lola. When she talks about her experiences with the war, it's really amazing. Like she can get very vivid. She remembers during the war in 1940s. I think it was the Japanese occupation. Magtago daw sila kung may mga sundalo, no, naman ay mo warning nila, uy, nanang mga sundalo. Yung magtago daw sila. Tapos magtago sila, maghabol daw na sila og, I forgot what kind of material it was. Buri, something. It's like a mat made of a native material, abaka. And they would hide under tall grass. And nakainomdom daw siya one time, nagtago daw sila from the Japanese soldiers. And na daw murag nibugat sa ilang tiyan. It was this cold and heavy thing that was kind of sliding through their tummies. And apparently, day dako kayo nga has. Nga ni agi nilang tanan kay tapad-tapad man na sila niya magtago sila under the abaka mat. Nara sila sa kanang kalibunan. So nako na ni kalit og slide through nilang ahas. Okay, so can you imagine what that feels like when you're young? My lola was young during the war, and she would hide under an abakamat in like beyond beneath tall weeds, and suddenly there's this really big snake that slides through your stomach, diba? And it's not just you; it's a line of people, and the snake is sliding through all of you, thinking nga yuta mo, o diba? So you can imagine it. That's the beauty when you know how to tell stories. You can make somebody imagine what you're saying. Now, fifth and last is my message complete. So have you included all relevant information? Lahat ba ng kailangan mong sabihin nasabi mo na? What does that mean? That means, kailangan, di ba, minsan kasi when we communicate, kulang-kulang siya. Like, ma'am, kano sa'yo deadline, ani ma'am? Ma'am, unsay format, ani ma'am? Ma'am, unsay criteria? Ma'am, unsa ni pagbas? O, di ba? Ma'am, one-fourth, ma'am. So, sometimes, kulang ang information and you have to clarify. But as a purposive communicator, I mean, you want to be as complete as possible. You know, include all the details that you think your audience will ask for or will need. Imo na siyang i-advance planning. Diri na mo gana atong advance mag-isip, okay? So, does it end with a call to action? By call to action, it means it's a challenge. No, when you're giving a message on, for example, on abuse towards women and children or even men. When you're giving a message on abuse, you want to challenge people. You want to end your message with a challenge na parang, what can you do to help put an end to violence against women and children? So your call to action is join us, post on your wall or speak to a woman about her rights today. So meron kang call to action. And you have to remember this class because for your midterms, you're going to do a speech, okay? You're going to have an oral practicum and you're going to need to include a call to action in your practicum, okay? And then have I answered so what? Okay. So what is probably one of the most important questions you have to ask in communication. So what challenges you to think, okay, does my message matter? is this message going to benefit or add value to somebody else's life? No, for example, mag-share ka og post online nga mangdaot kag laing tao. So what? You have to ask yourself, so what? Unsay effect ani? Ngano, so what, 'di ba? If you share something, you have to think of the impact. For example, you share a post nga dauton nimo, let's just say, okay, politics. This is very common today in political wars online today, uso gyud kaayo nga dauton nimo ang tawo instead of tan-awon nimo iyang point of view. So kita ko recently no naka-scroll lang ko ni naay ni post og criticism against a candidate nga gisuportaan. And ang ni-share sa post, iyang gi-share ang post, iyang gidaot. Yung gidaot ang nag-criticize nga murag basta it was like an attack to the person yun nga something like mautugnaw or kanang upaw or kanang it was like what is this, you were insulting the person instead of the person's perspective or point of view. And class, please, ayaw pa kaulawi ang atong eskwelahan, do not share on social media while attacking people, because you're not being intentional as a communicator. You're just really bringing shame upon yourself, because it reflects who you are, your attitude as a person nga mangdaot kag ubang tao. But if you can engage in intellectual discussion, if you can target unsay sayop sa giingon atong nga tawo. For example, maingon ka, dili to mao iyang facts nga gi-state, no? Or wala man ni siya nag-research daan, mo manggod ni. So if you disagree with a person, make sure to be clear, why do you disagree? Maybe you disagree because sayop tong iyang criticism. Actually, dili ni mao, wala ni nakasala. Kay nga no, you have to have proof. Dili kay mo disagree ra ka tungod kay ganahan ra ka ani nga kandidato. Okay, you have to be wise. If you're gonna be a social worker in the future, you have to be careful because you're serving public good, the social good. You're not campaigning under just one person or one political party. You're going to be representing your specific field or discipline. And I expect you to be much wiser than you are. Than much wiser than attacking people for how they look or calling people bulok online or insulting them. Okay, so I hope this message speaks to you. I'm gonna have to end here, but there's gonna be a part two for this. And tell me what you think. I'm gonna be posting something online. This one, Julian Treasure's TED Talk on how to speak so that people want to listen. I really need you to watch this. I'll be posting this on our virtual classroom. And this talk by Julian Treasure is a place where you can find these, deadly sins of speaking, foundations of being a powerful speaker, how to use your voice, and how to warm up your exercises for warming up. Okay, you're gonna need this because okay, why are you gonna need this? Because your midterms will be an oral practicum, and for your oral practicum, you will be giving a 2 to 3 minute talk on the topic that you are passionate about, and you will tell us how your passion is related to social work. Okay, so you will be sending your written or typed draft by March 4, 2022. Please do that. And please prepare to deliver your talk for midterms by March 18, 2022. I hope you can memorize it. It's easy to memorize something na ikaw ang nagsulat. So start drafting your speech and submit it by March 4, 2022. Okay, that's it for this session, class. Thank you. I hope this spoke to you in some way. Tell me what you think in the comments below, and I hope to see you real soon in a face to face class. Take care.